There's something mysterious about those moments when you're near someone and everything just feels different. The air seems thicker, your heartbeat becomes noticeable, you're hyper aware of every tiny movement, every breath, every second that passes. Nothing dramatic is happening on the surface, yet internally, something profound is unfolding. If you've ever wondered why certain interactions stay with you for years while others fade instantly, you're about to understand the deeper mechanics at play. Think about the last time you felt genuinely drawn to someone in a way you couldn't quite articulate. Maybe you were having coffee and your hands accidentally brushed. Maybe you were walking side by side and your shoulders touched briefly. Perhaps you were talking and they leaned in just slightly and suddenly your entire focus narrowed to that single moment. These aren't random occurrences. They're the result of precise psychological and physiological processes happening beneath your conscious awareness. The human brain is constantly scanning for signals. It's evaluating safety, interest, compatibility, and intention through thousands of micro-observations every minute. Your conscious mind might be focused on the conversation, but underneath, your nervous system is processing tone of voice, facial microexpressions, body orientation, and spatial dynamics. When certain patterns emerge, your brain begins releasing specific neurochemicals that fundamentally alter your emotional state. This is where attraction stops being abstract and becomes visceral. What most people don't realize is that the body operates on layers of sensitivity. Your forearm responds differently than your lower back. Your palm processes touch differently than your neck. This isn't random design. Evolution has created a sophisticated map of responsiveness across your skin, with certain zones wired to send particularly strong signals directly to the emotional centers of your brain. When these areas are engaged, even lightly, the message received isn't just physical. It's interpreted as intimacy, as meaning, as something worth paying attention to. Consider what happens neurologically when someone enters your personal space. There's an invisible boundary around each person, roughly an arm's length in casual settings, that marks the transition from public to personal territory. When someone crosses that boundary, your amygdala immediately registers the change. If your brain categorizes this person as a threat, you'll feel discomfort or anxiety. But if they're categorized as welcome, something entirely different happens. Instead of alarm, you experience heightened focus. Your pupils may dilate slightly. Your breathing pattern might synchronize with theirs without either of you noticing. Time seems to behave differently. This synchronization is fascinating because it happens automatically. Studies on interpersonal neurobiology show that when two people are genuinely connected, their nervous systems begin coordinating. Heart rates influence each other. Breathing falls into rhythm. Even brain activity starts showing similar patterns in certain regions. This isn't mystical. It's measurable physiology, and it's why certain people make you feel calm while others leave you feeling drained. Your nervous system is literally responding to theirs. Now, let's talk about something that changes everything once you understand it. The anticipation of an experience often creates more neurological activity than the experience itself. Scientists studying reward pathways discovered that dopamine, the chemical associated with pleasure and motivation, surges most powerfully not during a reward, but in the moments before receiving it. Your brain is designed to be captivated by possibility, by the edge of what might happen next. This explains why rushed interactions rarely leave lasting impressions. When something happens too quickly, there's no opportunity for anticipation to build. The brain barely registers the moment before it's already passed. But when there's space, when there's a slow unfolding, when you can sense something developing but can't quite predict when it will arrive, every second becomes saturated with attention. You're not just present, you're intensely present. And intensity creates memory. I remember talking with someone who described a moment from 20 years ago with perfect clarity. She was at a friend's party, talking with someone she'd just met. The conversation was good, comfortable, nothing extraordinary. Then, at one point, while everyone else was laughing at something across the room, he turned to her and held eye contact just 1 second longer than typical. That's all. 1 second. But in that second, the entire dynamic shifted. She said it felt like the room disappeared. Not because anything dramatic happened, but because the pause created space for awareness to expand. That single moment changed her entire evening, and as it turned out, her life. What made that moment powerful wasn't the eye contact alone, it was the context surrounding it, the ease that preceded it, the lack of agenda, the genuine presence. When multiple signals align, warmth, proximity, appropriate timing, mutual openness, the brain interprets the situation as safe enough to lower defenses and meaningful enough to engage fully. This combination is rare. Most interactions are either safe but boring or exciting but uncertain. When you find both safety and excitement together, the mind pays deep attention. Here's where physical sensitivity becomes psychological significance. The side of your neck contains a high concentration of nerve endings. So does the inner wrist, the small of the back, the area just behind the ear. These regions send stronger signals to your brain than, say, your shoulder or your knee, but the physical sensitivity is only half the equation. The other half is psychological interpretation. These areas are also zones we protect. We don't let strangers near our neck. We don't allow casual acquaintances to touch our lower back. These spaces are reserved for people we've granted access to. So when someone does enter these zones, the brain immediately assigns meaning. This isn't casual anymore. This is personal. This is intimate. And if the context supports that interpretation, if the moment feels right, if there's mutual comfort, the emotional impact amplifies dramatically. A simple touch to the shoulder might feel friendly. The exact same pressure applied to the lower back creates an entirely different response. Not because of the touch itself, but because of what that touch communicates about the relationship. This is why understanding matters more than technique. You can't manufacture genuine connection through strategic touching or calculated pauses. People sense inauthenticity instantly because their nervous system detects the mismatch between your actions and your internal state. If you're anxious, your body telegraphs that anxiety through subtle tension in your movements, slight irregularities in your breathing, and micro expressions you're not aware of making. No amount of technique can hide that. But when you're genuinely calm, genuinely present, genuinely comfortable in yourself, every gesture carries a different weight. Let me give you something practical. Next time you're in a comfortable conversation with someone you trust, try this simple experiment. Let silence happen. Most people panic when conversation pauses and rush to fill the gap with words. Instead, allow 3 full seconds of quiet. Just 3. Don't break eye contact, don't fidget, don't escape into your phone. Just be there, comfortable in the pause. You'll notice something remarkable. The silence won't feel empty. It will feel full, and the other person will likely become more engaged, not less. This happens because pauses create space for presence. When you're constantly talking or doing, there's no room for awareness. But in stillness, people actually see you. They feel your energy. They register whether you're comfortable or uncomfortable with yourself. And that information communicates far more than any words could. Someone who can be still without anxiety demonstrates something valuable. They're at ease with themselves. And that ease is magnetic because it's rare. Your breathing affects everything. When you breathe shallowly and quickly, which most people do without realizing, your nervous system stays in a low-level stress state. This creates subtle tension throughout your body that others perceive unconsciously. But when you consciously slow your breathing even slightly, your entire physiology shifts. Your heart rate decreases, your muscles relax, your movements become smoother, and crucially, your presence becomes calming rather than activating. People feel more relaxed around you, even if they couldn't explain why. Here's what this looks like in real situations. Imagine you're sitting on a couch with someone, watching something, talking occasionally, comfortable. At some point, you shift slightly closer. Not dramatically, just a subtle adjustment. Then you let that adjustment settle. You don't keep moving, you don't immediately do something else, you just allow the new proximity to exist. In that moment, the other person's awareness shifts. They notice the change even if they don't consciously acknowledge it. Their brain begins processing the new spatial dynamic. And if the context is right, if there's mutual interest, that simple shift creates a small surge of attention. Now imagine adding another layer. While maintaining that proximity, you slow your breathing intentionally. The other person's nervous system will begin synchronizing with yours without either of you trying. This is automatic physiological coupling. As their breathing slows to match yours, they'll naturally become calmer, more present, more open. You haven't manipulated anything. You've simply created conditions where natural connection can emerge. But here's the critical piece that most people miss. None of this works if you're doing it to someone. It only works when it's happening with someone. The difference is enormous. When you're doing something to get a result, the other person senses the agenda. Their defenses activate, even subtly. But when you're genuinely in the moment, enjoying the connection for its own sake, with no attachment to outcome, the entire energy changes. Paradoxically, releasing the need for a specific result is often what allows that result to occur naturally. I once knew someone who struggled with dating for years. He was intelligent, kind, successful, but something wasn't clicking. When I observed him interact, the issue became obvious. He was performing. Every gesture, every comment, every pause was calculated to create a specific impression. There was no genuine presence, just strategic behavior. So we worked on something simple. Stop trying to impress, stop strategizing, just be curious about the other person. Listen to understand, not to respond. Allow silences without filling them. Within weeks, everything changed. Not because he learned new techniques, but because he stopped performing and started connecting. This reveals something profound. Real attraction isn't built through impressive actions. It emerges through authentic presence. When someone feels genuinely seen, genuinely heard, genuinely met where they are, that experience creates emotional resonance. And emotional resonance is what people remember. Not your clever words, not your interesting stories, but how you made them feel. Physical touch becomes meaningful within this context. A hand placed gently on the small of someone's back while guiding them through a doorway means nothing if there's no emotional foundation. But if there's already comfort, already warmth, already mutual interest, that same gesture can send electricity through both people. The touch itself is identical. The context makes it meaningful. This is why timing matters so much. The exact same action performed too early feels intrusive. Performed too late feels missed. But at the right moment, it feels perfect. How do you know the right moment? You feel it. Your nervous system tells you through subtle cues. The other person leans slightly toward you rather than away. Their body orientation opens toward you. They maintain eye contact comfortably. Their responses become more animated. They find reasons to extend the interaction rather than conclude it. These signals, when present together, indicate openness. But even with all the right signals, rushing destroys the magic. Speed communicates urgency, and urgency often reads as desperation or purely physical intent. Slowness communicates confidence and presence. It says, there's no rush. This moment matters. I'm enjoying this unfolding. That communication happens beneath words, through pace and energy. And it's incredibly powerful because so few people operate this way. Most interactions in modern life are rushed. Quick conversations, rapid exchanges, immediate gratification. So when someone moves through the world differently, when they're unhurried and fully present, they stand out. Not through effort, but through contrast. They create space that feels different, calmer, more real. And people are drawn to that because real human connection has become rare. Here's the deeper truth beneath all of this. What we're really talking about is nervous system regulation. When two people are together and both are in calm, regulated states, connection flows naturally. Conversation feels easy. Silences feel comfortable. Touch feels natural. But if even one person is dysregulated, anxious, performing, or disconnected from themselves, everything becomes harder. The interaction requires effort rather than unfolding organically. This is why working on yourself matters more than learning interaction strategies. When you're genuinely comfortable with who you are, when you've done the internal work to regulate your own nervous system, when you can be still without needing external validation, you bring a completely different energy to every interaction. People feel that. They relax around you. They open up, not because you're doing anything to them, but because your regulated state creates permission for their nervous system to regulate too. The most unforgettable moments aren't created through grand gestures. They emerge when conditions align properly. Mutual comfort, appropriate timing, genuine presence, physical proximity, emotional openness. When these elements come together naturally, even the smallest interaction becomes significant. A brief touch, a sustained glance, a comfortable silence. These simple moments, properly contextualized, create the experiences people remember for decades. So the real question isn't what technique should you use, but who are you being in these moments? Are you present or distracted? Anxious or calm? Performing or authentic? Agenda-driven or genuinely curious? The answers to these questions determine everything. Because people don't fall for what you do, they fall for how they feel in your presence. And how they feel is determined by the state you're operating from. When you understand this, everything becomes simpler. You stop trying to impress and start being real. You stop rushing and start savoring. You stop performing and start connecting. And paradoxically, that's when the most powerful experiences become possible. Not through effort, but through presence. Not through technique, but through authenticity. Not through doing more, but through being more fully yourself.